Hello, and welcome to the Wade Boothe Podcast. I'm your host, Wade Boothe, and in every episode, my goal is to get you to think differently about how money works and ultimately to empower you to take control of your money and your personal financing system. Hello, and welcome back to the Wade Boothe Podcast. Today, I got a special guest with me, Zack Boothe, who hosts the Driving for Dollars Mastery podcast. Zack shares some insight and secrets to finding massively discounted properties regardless of experience level. Zack went from being a successful window washer and having his own business, a very successful business by the way, doing that, into being a very successful millionaire and real estate investor. So today, welcome Zack. I appreciate you taking some time. Looking forward to some of the ideas that you can share with us, some of the insight. So again, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time and joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me on the show. And when you say successful window cleaner, I guess that's all relative, you know?
Well, every business has got success. I mean, I find it interesting that people, there's so many ways to be successful. And again, it's not always about making money, but it's about finding value and finding things that drive you and make you want to get up and get excited about being who you are in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's what you were when you're doing window washing, because I don't imagine that you were successful at it unless you had that drive.
Yeah, I mean, what I got out of the window cleaning was not a lot of money, that's for dang sure. I did okay, but the bigger I got, the less money I made, the less my profit margins were. I just kept building a business, became a bigger headache with less in my pocket. By the time I walked away from it and sold out, I was 3 trucks, 13 employees. We were doing $500,000 a year in sales, in revenue, but I was making about the same amount as I was making when I had 1 truck and 2 employees. And I was making about $5,000 to $6,000 a month, which is not very exciting, especially when you have a young family and trying to get by. It was paycheck to paycheck. For outside looking in, I was way more successful than I was. I had all these trucks and I had employees and I had a YouTube channel with millions of views and I had tons of clients and I had a brand and people knew who I was. And like, it seemed like I was doing something. And what I got out of it was the understanding, the education, the frustration, the struggle, the character, the work ethic that I developed and had to develop to get to that point. And it also pushed me to a much better industry. So,
you know, and this is the part I think is so valuable, is that I had a mentor a long time ago. He always said that no education's cheap, right? And so what you learned, maybe monetarily, maybe it wasn't quote unquote successful, but it gave you ability, at least this just my observation, gave you the ability to how to think a little bit, how to see what's right, what's wrong, what's not going to work, what's going to work. It broadened your perspective and it made you learn that what's out there is a lot bigger than what it was when you first started, right? It's just that something that we learn, we can never unlearn, right? We still have that experience now we can build off of. And that humble experience of saying, hey, I'm going to be a successful window washer. Again, you're successful. You had trucks, you had all these things that look successful, but you weren't making a lot of money. And so you're trading all your time for the small amount of money that you're making. And again, when you got a family, you want to do all the outdoor stuff that you and I both enjoy and both talked about. It didn't allow you to do a lot of that stuff as well. So now it's like it gave you the opportunity to transition to the next bigger step. Again, when I was thinking about it, I shared this with you. You went from washing other people's windows. Now you became a real estate investor. Now you're hiring companies to wash your windows.
It was a huge transition in life. It was major differences. It was only about 7 years ago that I went full time into real estate, and it was not easy to get there. One of the big things that really changed everything for me is the last couple of years that I was washing windows is I was listening to podcasts just like this. I was listening to books and I was unsatisfied with where I was. And so I started looking at other options, but I never stopped working really hard. Right. And so I started to educate myself and open up my mind to the understanding and the possibilities of something more. That was the first step I took.
Yeah, to that point, that's why I think people really have to appreciate the process, right? Is that if we're not happy with where we're at, what does it take, right? It takes certain characteristics. It takes our ability to educate ourselves. It takes our ability to partner with those that know what they're doing. It takes our ability to I was always told that in order for people to make change, 2 things have to happen. Either something very emotional has to happen in your life, like the death of a spouse or relative or whatever, your dad or whatever it might be, or you need to have a repetitive, something that's you're going to do repetitively with elite level coaching, right? Having somebody kind of help you and walk you through the process, and then that drive that, again, you had in your other business that wasn't giving you the results that you wanted. So you had a drive that was bigger than what your business would allow.
Yeah, most people think that what drives us as humans is the pursuit of pleasure. And it's actually not. It's actually the avoidance of pain, right?
Exactly.
And so it's when I couldn't really cover bills. And I remember the day my son was born and I couldn't figure out how I was going to pay the hospital bills. And I felt like a loser. I felt like a failure. I felt like I wasn't providing for my family. I get a lot of self-value from providing and taking care of them. And I wasn't there. And it hurt. It sucked, right? I felt horrible. And that was a huge driver. And so, like you said, there's a lot of discipline and hard work, and the pain of doing the work and the pain of having discipline has to be less than the pain of not having the outcome. Right. So for sure.
Yeah. I work with a lot of agents, and one thing I teach them is that people don't change unless they're in pain. You hit the nail on the head, is that there's got to be, it doesn't have to be physical pain. It can be monetary. It could be time. It could be relationship or just purpose, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, people want to change, and sometimes they don't know how. And when they figure it out, then look out. If they have that drive, they're going to go ahead and change because they don't like the position that they're in. But did that translate over to the real estate business? My work ethic was strong. My ability, my understanding that I have to educate myself. I have to listen to what other people are doing, to be open-minded. I mean, I talk so much. Oh, that's so huge. I talk so much about conditioned thinking. Is that we've been conditioned to think a certain way, and we have to break that if we really want to expand our situation that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, the next step of all this is I see this all the time. People just get stuck in the research phase. They get stuck in, what do I do? What do I want? And they don't really know what they want, right? Ralph Waldo Emerson said, well, I can tell you how to get anything you want, but no one can tell me what they want. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to, in your research, really decide what you want and why it is that's what you want. Because then when you have a clear understanding where you want to go, the destination, then you start doing the research of what's step one, right? Because if you don't have step one and you're researching step two and then researching step three and you never take action on step one, you'll never get there. So I started researching what are all the spaces I want to be in. And I quickly identified it's real estate, right? Real estate is where I want to be. But then I kind of started. I did my first real estate deal in 2012, newly married, and I bought a duplex, lived in one side and rented the other. And then I bought another one a couple years later, but I had all these obstacles. I had to hop from house to house so I could get a primary resident loan because I didn't have 20% down or 25% down. My debt to income ratio was an issue. I had all these obstacles to buy more rentals. I had all these obstacles to become a wealthy investor. And so it's now what? Right? How do I become an investor when I'm not wealthy? How do I become an investor when I don't have a rich uncle or rich parents, right? My grandpa had one tooth and a gun when he died. I don't come from money. And so for me, it was like, how do I be John D. Rockefeller, right? Because I'm not John D. Rockefeller's son.
Right.
And so I didn't know what to do. And that's where I really started researching, okay, I want to do real estate, but I want to do a lot of real estate. Now what do I do? That's what I started researching. Like, how do I get into this with not having money?
Right. So speak to that a little bit, because again, part of what we teach our clients, or what I teach my clients, say, hey, look, take control of the banking function of your life. You got to think long term. That knowledge you have is already within you. We just need somebody to kind of clear out the weeds in your garden. Again, I'm a farm boy, so everything revolves around farming. Right? We got to clear out the weeds so you can cultivate and grow that knowledge you want to grow. And again, it's not me doing it; it's just me helping you, empowering you to do it. But as people do that and they start reserving their money and they start getting it set up, then they have access to these dollars. But it's never, especially right away, it's never enough to buy 5 houses or even buy one on their own dollar. This is a lifetime process, and hopefully it becomes intergenerational. I mean, that's my ultimate goal. And the hope is that my son doesn't have to wait until he's 35 or 40 like I did to understand that process and to not have this scarcity mindset. And so your idea of your challenge of you taking $1,000 and turning it into $93,000, if I remember that challenge correctly, was so, I'm like, man, there's something there. How do you do that? How do I get my clients to see that they don't need to have all the money in the world set aside in order to do that? Right? It's not, you can't wait for that to happen. You have to kind of be engaged along the way as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why I did that challenge, because I was stuck in this place of not being able to pick up more rentals, doing all this research. How do I get into real estate investing with no money? I'm searching and researching YouTube and podcasts for this kind of information. And I learned about something called real estate wholesaling. It's where you find deeply discounted properties. Let's say you find a house fixed up, it's worth $300,000. You get it under contract for $150,000. Then you find an investor that would pay $200,000 for it. So you just pass the opportunity on to this flipper for $200,000 when you have it for $150,000. You don't have to close on the house. You don't have to get debt to buy the house. You just sell the contract essentially, right? The contract's assignable. So Bob the flipper pays $200,000, you get $50,000, and the sellers get $150,000. And I'm like, there's no way that this is possible. You can't find properties at a discount, and even if you could, it would be dishonest. It would not be okay. But I was washing windows for a wealthy gentleman about a year after I learned about this, but I said, no, it's not for me. You have to be a bottom feeder. I'm not going to do that. And so I was washing windows for a super wealthy gentleman. His name's Stan. And I found out he's a real estate developer. He's about 80 years old, in his 30s from being a civil engineer and doing all these developments, worth a ton of money. Son's a doctor, washed his windows too, wealthy family. And I remember asking him, how did you do it? What'd you do? And at the end of the conversation, an hour and a half later, I was like, man, if I could just get 2 rentals this year, it'd be amazing. And he's like, oh, I've got these 2. They're a pain in my butt. I haven't collected rents in 4 months. The agent wants me to clean them up. I don't want to deal with it. Just take them. I was like, okay, how much? And I think he wanted like just shy of $500,000, which is a great price. They were nice houses, horse properties. I mean, they were nice. He gave them to me at a huge discount. And I'm like, well, I can't go get a loan. He's like, I'll be the bank. It's okay. And he's, can you put 20% down? I was like, I put a couple $1,000 down, not even 1% down. He's okay, that works. Just make sure you take care of it. I trust you. I'm like, holy crap, right? And I ended up selling these properties for over $100,000 the next year. And it blew my mind because I was like, oh, it's real. That was a deal of a lifetime. But people are saying you can find these deals over and over. They exist everywhere. You just have to find someone that wants speed and convenience over price. Most people think we're finding people that are down and out on their luck, and it's actually not that at all. If they're down and out on their luck, they're usually upside down. They have liens. They have judgments against the title. They can't even sell at a discount even if they wanted to, right? And on top of that, they need every penny. They're desperate. They need the money. So they're going to try and squeeze out as much as they can, and they should. Right? The people we're working for are like tired landlords, right? People that inherited a property and it's a problematic property and they got problematic siblings and the executor flies in from Texas and they don't want to deal with it. And they're like, dude, get me the heck out of this place. I'm going to kill my siblings, right? Just buy it. Yep. These are the situations, right? There's code violations. There's all these problems. There's reverse mortgages. They don't want to deal with it, right? And so I learned that it's possible to find those people by having it happen to me. And so I was like, okay, like this is it. This is what I'm going to do, because if I can find properties at 50 cents on the dollar, I can pass them on for tens of thousands of dollars. Right? My average deal is $42,000 to pass on the contract. Okay, it's crazy. But better than the $42,000, I have a business now that has a pipeline of 50 cent on the dollar deals in an extremely inflated market, right? This is not even possible in most people's brains. So what I can do is I can immediately purchase a property and explode my net worth. I can refinance out some of the money and be zero money into the deal and then buy another one and buy another one. And I can build wealth. I can build my net worth. I build passive income. Plus, it appreciates over time. It goes up in value, right? So it's a lot safer than cash that's stuck somewhere. And then on top of that, I can write it off as an expense, the depreciation. So on paper, I'm losing money, but in reality, it's going up in value and I'm making money every month on the rental income. Right. And so to me, it's, dude, this is a no-brainer. So I hired a mentor and I went for it. And I walked up to my business partner at the time that had bought in a couple years before. I had run it for 7-8 years and then he bought in. And I went to him. I'm like, hey, I'm done. I quit. I was like, if there's profits, pay me. If there's not, I don't care. I'm done, right? I hired a mentor and I'm going for it. And he's, but you've never even done a wholesale deal. I was like, but I met Stan. I know it's possible. He's, you're crazy. You're going to lose everything. Because I hadn't cashed out on those deals yet. I still owned them, right? And he's, dude, you're going to lose everything. You're nuts. I'm like, I don't care. I'm done, right? Same business partner when we were teenagers. He told me I was crazy for starting the window cleaning business. Then he bought in. But anyways, I was like, I'm doing this. I'm done. And I did. And I quit the very beginning of 2017, my window cleaning business, and I went for it. You know, by the end of that year, I wholesaled enough properties that I made $118,000, somewhere in there, give or take a few thousand. So in about 8 months, it's about how much I made. And then the next year, I did just shy of $500,000. The year after that, $1.2 million. I went from barely scraping by to being a millionaire. right? And cherry picking deals and having a ton of cash. I mean, we were talking off air about the freedoms that I have. I've been to Hawaii twice this year. I'm going to Alaska. I've been to Arizona. I'm going to Montana. I play a ton and have these businesses and help people. My life completely changed because of this business, right? And I'm on podcasts like this and screaming it from the rooftop because I'm not a unicorn. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, right? But I have work ethic. And if you have work ethic, you guys can do it. And you had mentioned the 40-day challenge, Wade. So there's a lot of skeptics like I was. It's like, you have to be a bottom feeder. This isn't for me. People that are wealthy don't give away properties at a discount. It doesn't make sense, right? So I was like, shoot, I'll just go do it. I'll show it. I'll document day by day and show it. And I did, right? I did 3 wholesale deals, made $93,000, bought 2 more properties at $110,000 purchase price that are worth over $200,000, right? And so I show it day by day how to do it.
So if people want to see that, Zach, where do they see that at? Do you have a link? We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I have a super simple link. You guys can get access. Takes you to the landing page to get full access. It's dfdmastery.com/40 in 40. So the number 40 in 40.
Okay. So that will kind of show them and how you went on that 40-day challenge, right?
Yeah, just a day-by-day series.
Okay.
Cool. What I did, sellers I talked to, how I found them, exactly what I'm doing, right? It's not me trying to sell you something. I just want you guys to see that it's possible and exactly what it looks like.
So to your point, though, you said, hey, I'm going to be all in. I'm going to get into this wholesaling business. I'm going to be all in. Some people aren't in that position, right? Some people say, hey, I go back to the guy that you originally were washing his windows and he gave you access to that first property. And he said he would finance it. This is ultimately what we teach with the infinite banking concept. Nelson was a big Austrian economist, right? And the belief system there is these type of deals should be done at the you and me level. We don't need to have either bank intervention or government intervention. Really, this type of stuff should be done.
We need the government to hold our hands, dude. We need it.
Some people do. I prefer the less they hold my hand, the better.
I was joking for the audience. I know. They may not understand the joke.
They don't see you smiling on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because typically when one hand's holding your hand, the other one's reaching in your pocket. So
yeah, exactly.
Because it never comes without a cost, right?
I paid a huge check. Sorry, I don't mean to just go sidetrack here, but I wrote a big check for my federal taxes, and the memo is like, taxes, spend wisely, with a big smiley face.
Yeah. Good luck with that, right? Man, that's a whole other podcast, a whole other subject. But the point to that is, how important is it for clients to control their banking function in their lives? I mean, I think of that guy. I'll finance it. He was willing to finance you and set up he was basically your financier, your banker. And you think about how powerful that is from his standpoint. This is ultimately what I teach people. If I have the ability, again, if I work with farmers or whatever it is, do a contract for deed, do a self-financing thing where you're take control of the banking function. Somebody else needs that, wants to do the land, you can transfer it off, you get what you want. If they default, you get the land back, you get the property back, and you can go do it again. And it's not like you're putting yourself in a bad position, but you're helping people and you're growing people within your community. When I say community, I mean those people around you that are either supporting you, you're working together to grow and be better than you were yesterday.
100%.
And I just think about how fortunate you were to find somebody that understood that and was willing to say, hey, I'll give it to you, I'll sell it to you at a discount. And you said, I can't even afford it. They're willing to finance it. And they really asked for nothing down. But he saw something new that made it worth the risk and made it worth the while, right? He didn't see somebody that was going to take advantage of him, give him a headache.
Yeah. Yeah, and it worked out for him. I ended up selling him and he got cashed out completely. And it is not the only one I've been able to do. And that's the cool thing about this business is I'm constantly negotiating and talking to people. Most of my sellers, they want a cash offer, but a lot of them, they're worried about the tax ramifications of getting big lump sums of money, right? And it's better for them. They keep more in their pocket to finance it, right? And so it's, I've been able to I bought a condo for like $2,000 out of my pocket for $80,000 and it was worth $160,000. That's what at the time, and I ended up selling it like 2 years later at $240,000 and rolled all those profits back into another property. Right? It's mind blowing.
So to that point, I guess I was going there and I kind of got sidetracked. We started talking about the government taxation and all that fun stuff that goes along with that. I got clients and people that are listening to this podcast, the people that they might be busy being a doctor, might be busy being a contractor, whatever it is. They love this idea, but they're not willing to get out of what they're doing now to become a wholesaler.
Yeah.
How do you facilitate that? Or is that something, give me some insight on how they can take advantage of these type of opportunities.
Yeah, so it's completely possible to do it part-time, right? I'm a dumb person and just burn the boats, right? You probably shouldn't take that kind of risk. That was stupid. Maybe, I don't know, it worked out for me. But
It worked out for you.
for example, I won't coach someone unless they can give 15 hours a week. But if you can give 15 hours a week, that's enough time. But if you give 15 hours a week with my guidance, for example, my average student takes about 3 months to get their first deal. If you can put a little bit more time than that, you can do it. But I'll give you an example. One of my newest successful students, so I print out a picture of all my students, put it on my office wall, and my goal is to coach them, get their first deal, and then move them onto my success wall. So I have a success wall with all of my successful students, right?
Right.
So there's a guy named Jack Dong out of Seattle, and he's actually from Vietnam. Didn't speak English 3 years ago, right? He's making $15,000 a year and working full time. And enjoy my program. Implemented the action steps, and in 5 weeks closed his first deal. He made $50,000 on that deal, right? So he was working probably 20, 30 hours a week on top of his normal day job because he wanted it really bad. And if you guys absolutely love your job, Jack obviously didn't because he quit immediately, showed his paycheck to his friend, quit his job, and now works for Jack, right? And that might be your story. Scott Dallinger, same thing. His first deal was 113 grand, quit his corporate sales job, and just does this full time now. And that was like 2.5 years ago. Now he has a business where he's flipping and cherry picking rentals and is doing really well. Has a couple people that negotiate the deals for him. He doesn't even run the appointments. He's always in South America with his wife. Great dude. But you can do this on the side. If you're a doctor, I have a student that's a youth pastor, Winston. And he loves it, and he's choosing to do it part-time because he doesn't want to stop doing what he's doing, but he's not satisfied with the money he's making as a youth pastor, but he's fulfilled by it. So he's been able to do deals on the side and build his wealth on the side. So 100% it can be done part-time. Is kind of up to you want. It's kind of what I said before. It's what you want and why you want it and what your goals are, and then build your life around that.
Gotcha. So, and it's interesting. I have a couple of clients that are in the real estate space, right? And so their biggest constraint is their geographic location. Is that a constraint that you address, that you deal with? I mean, is that something people can do? Again, I have clients all over the United States. And so if somebody in Utah, for example, wants to buy a property in North Dakota, is that something that you address?
Yeah, you can do this anywhere, right? So I have rentals in Florida now, and I have rentals here in Utah. And I've done deals, and I personally have done deals in about 13 states. But I have students all across the country in every state. So the whole reason... So the 40-day challenge, I actually jumped on a plane and went to Tampa, Florida. At the time, I had never even been to Tampa. Been to Florida, of course, but never to Tampa. And my goal was to go somewhere where I had no connections, no experience. I wanted to start from scratch to show you that it's possible. And people are like, well, you chose Tampa. Why? It's like, because it's sunny and warm, and it was January. Yeah.
Good call.
That was my criteria. It's like, if I'm going to go suffer, I'm going to suffer and be warm, because the experience sucked. I worked my butt off, right? And I didn't see my family for 30 days. I made a major sacrifice to put all that content together, but it can be done anywhere. The only restrictions are you got to have housing around you. If you don't have a population size, it's going to be hard to find a lot of deals because there's just not a lot of houses, right? So if you're an hour or two drive within an area with 100,000 people or more, it's very possible to do, but I suggest doing that. So then the other question is like, what if I live in rural America and I love it, I'm a farmer, and that's what I want to do, that's where I want to be, can I do this? Yes, you can do it virtually. So you can negotiate your deals over the phone. You can find buyers that live in that area that are going to take your deals from you, so you can wholesale to them, and you don't even have to go to the properties. I don't specialize in virtual wholesaling, but it is 100% possible. I have a really good friend named Sean Young who does virtual, and you guys can shoot me a DM or whatever on Instagram if you want to be connected with him, if you want to do it virtual. But if you want to do it anywhere close to where you live, it's possible. Some people are like, oh, California's too expensive, or blah, blah, blah. And I have students in every state that are super successful. So it's just, the big thing is the higher inflated markets, you're going to do bigger deals because you can. It's going to be really hard to do a $100,000 deal in the Midwest where the houses are worth $100,000. To make $100,000 on a $180,000 house once it's fixed up, there's just not the numbers. But if you're in California or Utah and the houses are worth $500,000 to $1 million, $100,000 is definitely possible.
Right. And because one of the questions I put out for the podcast was, are all markets created equal? And obviously the answer is no. Sure. But maybe in the sense that they are as well, right? They're all markets have opportunities. It's just the dollar amount is going to be different. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. The biggest thing, like most people are like, oh, like how do you become successful? And they're looking at cap rates, and they're looking at all these different metrics and employment rates and all these things to evaluate a market, right? And this is how I evaluate the market and your ability to become successful if you know absolutely nothing about real estate. There are motivated sellers everywhere. What I mean by that is there's people that will trade convenience over price everywhere. And if you can get good at finding those people, which I am very good at, and that's what I teach, you can do deals anywhere. That is the criteria. How much money you can make as far as on a flip, or how much you can make on your cap rates. All those things may vary. But if you're finding properties at 50 cents on the dollar, does it matter where it is? No, you're getting 100% return on purchase. Right. So to me, it's a no-brainer. If you can find properties at 50 cents on the dollar, you'll be successful, and it doesn't matter where.
Yeah. So part of your, so I'm gonna go back so I own some real estate across the country myself, some long-term rentals, and I get calls and I get postcards in the mail all day long, right? It's like, you want to sell your property? Are you interested in selling your property? And so I entertain those calls because I'm interested to hear what their sales pitch is and what they're saying.
Yeah, the script. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love it, dude.
I love it, because again, it's the world I live in. I'm kind of a nerd that way, right? And I understand that. Is that part of your system as well, or is that something that you guys do?
Yeah, guarantee those are investors. They might be flippers, they might be wholesalers, they might be buy and hold investors, but they're looking for that deal of a lifetime that they do every single week, right?
So, and these guys are just employed. I think they just hire somebody to make 1,000 phone calls a day and say, hey, you're interested? Because I'm like, yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Well, let me get you with Bob or whoever the investor is. And so they're just making that connection. But I've had some great conversations, quite frankly, with these. I've learned a lot from what they're trying to do. But, have you condensed that process down to teach people how to go find those deals? And part of it is, and I read this too, and I circled it and made a big point to talk about it. The purchase is just one part of it. It's how do you exit it as well. That's probably the money is to be made on the purchase, but you actually collect on the exit.
Yeah, so there's different ways to make money. Like I said, you could wholesale it. You can pass it on if you don't have the money or the money backing to buy it, right? Or you can do what's called wholetailing, where you close on it and just list it immediately on the MLS and not do any remodel. You can flip it, where you buy it, fix it up, sell it for top dollar in the MLS. Or you can keep it as a long-term rental. There's lots of ways you can make money, right? And then there's also, is the property itself have a higher and better use? Can it be higher density? Then there's that as well. There's developments that can come into play. But the big thing that we're looking for, so if you guys watch the 40-day challenge, you'll see day 4, I'm cold calling, right? I'm doing the grunt work, right? I drove around, found some ugly houses, and I pulled up all the information on the owner, and I started calling. And I called a guy named Jerry. So that day 4, I actually called 3 people that ended up in 5 contracts. And I did 7 contracts. So day 4 was just bonkers. I signed 3 purchase contracts day 4. If you want to watch one day, watch day 4, because it blew my mind. I was emotional. I was like sobbing at the end of the day, dude. Like, I was like, holy crap. Because I went and I told everyone about this. I thought I might fail and look like an idiot because I was going to try and make 40 grand. I blew it out of the water, and I was so grateful to do so. And I was very humbled on day 4. It was pretty incredible because I did this to serve and to help others. And I prayed for help, and I was nervous, right? So I was very emotional that it worked out the way that it did. But I called Jerry, right? And the script is, because most people are like, what do you say? And you just ask him. I tell people all the time, if your negotiation strategy changes because your family member called you about selling their house, you're doing it wrong. So I get Jerry on the phone. I said, hey, Jerry, do you want to sell your house at XYZ address? And he's, honey, do we own the house? And I was like, okay, this guy has a bunch of rentals, right? He doesn't even know which house he owns. So, and he's, I'm not sure. I was like, that's okay. That's okay. My name's Zack. I'm an investor. I'm looking to buy some houses. Do you have any that you would like to sell? And he says, actually I do. And I'm like, okay, great. It was it was a wrong number. He didn't even own the house that we were talking about, right? And
I was looking out for you.
Oh, dude, it was the coolest thing ever, right? I'm like, oh, that's okay, cool. Tell me about it. He's, they're completely remodeled. They're manufactured homes on land. They're great condition, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Jerry, they sound like you just put all this money into them. You'd make more money if you just listed it with an agent and just squeezed every penny out. Why don't you do that? Right? That wouldn't make me any money, but I was honest. If a family member called me, I'd say the same thing. His words, you can listen to him. He says, I don't care. Those exact words. I don't care because I don't want to deal with them. And come to find out, he had a ton of rentals, and those were his 3 problematic properties. Right, over the phone, we were only talking 2, but it ended up being 3. There was his problematic properties. He had cancer. He was very sick. His wife was very capable and was going to take care of the other rentals, but these ones were far away from the rest of his portfolio. They were kind of a scary area, and he didn't want to deal with them. He wanted to have the peace of mind that they were gone. right? And I built a relationship, and she was a tough cookie on the appointment. It took me 3 hours to get her to warm up to me and be willing to work with me. She was so funny about it, right? But we ended up hugging and crying and talking about how he'd willed and dealed and built his portfolio and that he was dying of cancer. I mean, it was a really emotional appointment. I built a connection with these people, and I helped them. And they helped me. I told them about the challenge. I told them how much money I was trying to make. They hoped that I made a ton of money. I ended up having them on my podcast after the challenge.
Beautiful.
They knew exactly how much money I made, and they were excited for me, right? And so most people don't realize that it's possible. You can find deals like that, and it's the conversation is, does speed and convenience serve you? That's what I'm trying to find. So you're going to find a ton of people that want to sell. 90% of them are going to want top dollar, and that's fine. Tell them to go get top dollar. I'm not a fit. We're trying to find those very select few that what we offer serves them and their needs.
Yep. Yeah, that's such a great point, is that a lot of times we chase those people that aren't our fit, right?
In every industry.
I have a firm belief that, my light is like, if you're walking up to that cabin up in the mountains after you've been out hunting all day, it's got the light going.
Yeah.
At night and it's dark, and the light coming out of the windows just shines on a certain area. And that's my message. And it sounds like it's your message too. And then those that want to hear it will be in the light. But we spend all our time chasing those people that are outside the light to come in and join us and convince them that we should do business with them, versus just taking those people that are already there wanting to hear a message that are going to be our perfect client, or those that have the greatest relationship with us, and spending the time with those people instead of chasing somebody that never wants to hear our message. And we should have to understand what our message is. I think that's to your point earlier, is that most people don't know what they want.
Yeah.
And who their people are. So that's a fabulous story. The fact that, and it's not fabulous that he had cancer, but it was that you were there to help them, they were there to help you. And when that's the situation and that's the environment we can work in, that's beautiful. Just because everybody got served what they needed.
Yep. Yeah, and it's a win for everybody. And
Exactly.
It was really cool because Jerry, for an hour, just told me story after story of talking to this farmer and how he got that rental and getting chased off with shotguns trying to get deals. And he had been in my shoes for years, for decades. But we laughed about it and told stories of getting deals and how he got deals. And it made me happy. When one of the other deals, it was an inherited property, and the ex-girlfriend was living in the house, and it was problematic, and there was potential lawsuits, and it needed to go through probate. And the two brothers were just done. They were contractors. They understood how it all worked. They were just like, we don't care, dude. But if you can, I paid for their probate. I helped them with the legal process. And then I went to only had $1,000. And I had to go to the attorney and negotiate with the attorney that I could pay him out of the proceeds of the house because I didn't have the money. I had to stay within that budget. And I was wheeling and dealing, and it was fun. It was exciting. It was hard. I felt uncomfortable. But I think that for the audience that wants to be successful is understand what you want. Understand someone that can find someone that can give you the action steps, and then start taking action and be really uncomfortable. Because if you ever expect to ride a bike without crashing it, you're never going to ride a bike, right? Find someone that says, I've never crashed a bike, and I will tell you that person has never ridden a bike. Right. And so you will feel stupid. You will say things and make mistakes, and you'll get to the point where you are successful, and you'll look back and be like, "Whoo, I left a lot of money out there. I made many expensive mistakes." Right.
And I think this is the point with elite level coaching, right? So if you're either doing the IBC process with a practitioner like myself, or working with a guy like you that understands that, is that we're all gonna have pain. We're all gonna skin our knees. The question is, do we have 2 years of skinning our knees, or are we gonna have 6 months of skinning our knees?
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important to, like you said, you hired a mentor, right? Be associated with somebody that can lessen that pain cycle. And that's really important. And no matter what it is you do, right? So if you can find people that can give you knowledge, experience, and understanding, it doesn't mean you're still not going to get skinned knees. It's just, can we shorten that time cycle that's going to happen? So
Tom Kroll was my mentor. I don't know if I dropped his name.
No, you didn't. I was curious. I was going to ask you who your mentor was.
Yeah, Tom Kroll. He's out of Florida, and his business partner was actually here in Utah. And they actually sold out. They used to own a company called Wholesaling Inc. They're no longer part of the company, and they don't coach anymore. But dude, that dude completely changed my life. Completely.
Cool. So one of the things I was going to ask you is, what are some of the common mistakes that people make when they first get into real estate investment? Because I think it's like anything else. There's probably, the process is simple, but it's not easy. Would it be fair to say that? Yeah. I mean, there's probably certain steps, but it's not easy. So what are some of the common mistakes, or what are some of the things that people either fail or not as nearly successful. Because it's a lot of times it's probably the same habit or same thing that people do consistently over a population.
Yeah, I think overall people put the cart before the horse. What I mean by that is they're trying to figure out what to do with a discounted deal, but they have no idea how to find one. So they're researching how to manage rentals, they're researching how to flip houses, they're researching how to wholesale, but they're not researching how do I find properties with 50 cents on the dollar? Because that's the first step. If you find properties at massive discounts, then you got to worry about doing the rest. So I think that's the first mistake. Research how to find discounted deals. Right? And there's way fewer dudes teaching how to find discounted deals because there's very few people that are actually teaching what you need and that actually teach for the results of their students. The next thing I would suggest is they try and figure it out on their own. I tried for a while and it cost me a lot of money and opportunity costs, right? Finally hired the right mentor, everything changed. So hiring a mentor is a huge mistake. They either hire the wrong one or they don't hire one. Right. So I'm going to give a filter that I use. I still hire mentors. I have this coaching business and I have my wholesaling business and I'm hiring a coach right now to teach me developments. A little bit. I've done some, but I want to do like bigger stuff. I want to do multi-million-dollar deals. So I'm hiring a mentor for that. I have a one-on-one mentor that helps me with the vision and direction of my companies. I have a TikTok coach, a YouTube coach. So I have mentors, right? So this is the filter that I use before I pay someone as an advisor or a coach, right? First, are they doing and are they accomplishing exactly what I want to do? Because I do not want a college professor that teaches in theory, right? That will not serve me. So make sure they're doing it. Not that they did it 10 years ago, but they're currently actively doing what they teach, okay?
Yep.
Next thing, are they consistently getting results for other people? I mean, not like testimonials from a year or two ago, but are they consistently spitting out successful students? Because if they're not, run, right? Because they're selling products, they're not selling success, okay? And then the third filter is, do you like and trust the person? Because the last thing you want to do is join their program and implement the action steps, and you find that they're having you do things that are not within your core values, or you find it lack of integrity, right? Make sure that you research that person, his personality, listen to him talk, listen to his podcast, look at his ads. There's a lot of mentors that flash models and cars and houses, and they're very vain, and it's all about them and having things instead of who they affect and who they help and what they do, right? And to me, like, I would never hire someone that uses that for their marketing just because I think it's trashy. I don't like it. Right? It's funny. I post like TikToks. I'm in my Prius. And they're like, "You drive a Prius?" Yeah, it's great gas mileage. But that's what I mean. Make sure you can have a cup of coffee and enjoy hanging out with that person. Those are the three things I'd suggest.
Right. I think that last one is huge. I mean, I'm a firm believer in having a shared set of values. We don't have to be 100% in alignment, but 60 or 70% in alignment in our values. Because once you have that, there's a trust, and then everything else can be worked out, right? And again, to your other point, the other ones, they got to be successful doing what they're doing, because why do you want to hire somebody that's, like I said, a college professor that's giving you theory? I want somebody that's like boots on the ground. Hey, this is what I'm doing. I mean, I show people all the time, here's what I'm doing using my policies and systems. This is my banking system. I call it the Boothe Family Bank, and I give them real life examples of how we're doing it. Now, does it mean and touch everything to everybody? No, because other people have other desires, and that's fine. They're going to go find somebody else who can coach them on how to do
exactly
what they want to do. But here's how I'm doing it, and this is the reason for this podcast. I want to give people energy and some other ideas maybe that they haven't thought about. And working in a wholesale situation with, again, somebody that's got similar values, I just encourage people, if this is something they're looking for, if they want to hire a coach, because you're selling, I'm going to say you're selling, you have a coaching system that people want to join, they can go ahead and join. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I do have 5 requirements. Don't just coach everyone, but it's not because I'm trying to create scarcity. Like, I don't want to bring someone on unless I can make them money.
Right.
I started coaching, kind of a long story, but the goal was to make $1 million in a year, and I didn't know how. And I read a self-help journal. I had to give away whatever I wanted to receive. If you want love, give love. If you want money, give money. And so I was like, okay, I got to give away $1 million. So I went to my wife. She's, "You're freaking nuts." And I am. But I was like, let's do it, right? How do we do it? And I brought on 10 people, and I taught them what I was doing, right? And changed their lives, changed my life, because I learned more than I thought I was teaching. Because they'd ask me things and I'd be like, oh, crap, I don't know. I found so many mistakes in my business. I had to learn.
Right.
And it was an amazing experience. I fell in love with it. I never had intentions. I never wanted to be the center of attention. I don't care. Like, I just want to help people. And I found so much fulfillment in it. It's kind of my passion project, right? Real estate's my moneymaker. Coaching and advising's passion. And so if you guys want to become a student, it's kind of easy. You can go to my website, dftmastery.com. You can book a call and talk to my right hand on how it works. When you become a student, you have my cell phone. I help you through your deals. Like, I don't just sell you some information. I give you the action steps and coach you and advise you. We have group calls. We have personal calls. So if you guys want to understand how it works, you can book a call and talk to us about it, understand the 5 requirements before I'll coach you that you have to commit to. And yeah, we go through all that. But I suggest, like I said, do some research on me first. Do some research on some other coaches. Make sure that whoever you hire that has that, remember, right? Know what you want. And then once you do, make sure that coach is doing that, right? Make sure that person is also getting results. Check with the other students. Right. And then third, make sure you like me. So watch the 40-day challenge. Listen to some of my podcasts. Make sure I'm not someone that you're kind of disgusted by.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think that's great advice, and findings that is changed themselves and also changed others. Again, I'm a firm believer the more you give, way more you get in return. So yeah. I love that about what you're saying there. So I know we're running a little bit long, but there is one thing you talked about, that gentleman that had cancer, and his wife was very, how'd you say it?
I said she's sharp. She's smart. She's a tough cookie.
Very hard, right?
Yeah, it's a tough cookie. She was not open. Yeah. Like, I walked in and I was like, hi, how's it going? And she's looking at her iPad. Fine. I'm like, oh, crap. She does not want me here.
So does your wife participate in the real estate as well, or is that something she's not, she just chooses not to be part of?
We're 2 young kids, and she just got a new puppy, right? And so she participates. She helps with some of the rentals. She posted one of our new rentals. She helps manage a lot of things. We look at our finances. We do a net worth report every week. She manages all of our personal finances. She's involved, and she stepped in and helped me with my coaching. She's a videographer and photographer, and so she's helped with TikToks and YouTube at different points when I've needed staff, but not really. Like, her personality type and mine and what we're excited about is completely different. And I love providing for her, and I love spoiling her, and I love that she's free to go when I'm like, hey, we're going to Hawaii next week. And I have my harebrained ideas to go play. So.
Yeah, love it. So do you see a lot of women getting into the wholesaling and the real estate investment business? The only reason I ask is I got a lot of clients that I see them being successful doing, if they find that passion, that they're very good at it because they're focused and they're driven. And maybe it's just all people are that way, but I look at it, and I know you've been on some different podcasts about the real estate for women, and I'm just curious what your experience has been with that.
Yeah, so I've have quite a few successful women students for sure. Most of my students are men, and I think it's partly just because there's more men in the workplace, but I definitely have very successful women students. So I'll give you an example. Jessamy McVey, so it's like Jesse with M-E, and then McVey, M-C-V-E-Y. So she's one of my most successful students, women students, I should say, and one of my most successful students by far. She's jumped into it in 6 months. She's made like $500,000. She's freaking crushing it. Like, she's getting better results than I did when I started. Like, she's a powerhouse. And she's not just wholesaling. She's flipping, she's cherry picking and buying and holding properties. She's incredible. And I think she might be on the Real Estate Investing for Women podcast as well. Because when I was on that podcast, I was like, hey, you got to talk to Jessamy and a couple of my other women students. But no, I think one of the reasons that women can do well in this industry is because one of the things that it takes to be successful, to get discounted deals, is you have to connect with people. Right? You need to be able to come across as genuine. You need to really understand and actually care about the people and understand what their needs are and negotiate like it's a family member. What's in your best interest? How can I serve you and help you even if I don't make money? And I think in a lot of ways, women are genuinely more aware and conscientious of the needs of others, right? They're more endearing, they're more caring just by nature. And that comes across. We have a cold calling team, and I have a couple of Philippine women that actually cold call for us. And we have an in-house cold caller that's a man, and we actually get way less hate to our women because no one wants to be mean to a woman. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible for women, and then some.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a great market. I think there's a great market, and again, we're in the insurance industry, right? So, which is typically a male-dominated industry, but I think there's such a huge advantage for women in this industry as well as that, because of all the male-dominated industries, I think we're all based, I don't say all based, it's probably, but the point is that they are more empathetic. They do listen better than a lot of men. Instead of us always telling people what to do, they're able to listen and hear people. And I think there's a real gift there that we have to learn from.
Yeah, I really think that they're emotionally and socially smarter by nature.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's a skill set you can learn, right? Negotiation, sales, communication, it's a skill. It's a learned skill. But I think that there are certain people and sexes that are genuinely have an easier time grasping certain concepts.
Yep, I would agree with you. So, so real quick, Zach, I'm going to wrap this up. But so just for that person that's listening and says, "Hey, I don't know if this is really for me. I only have," you obviously did it with $1,000, right? But when we look at it, it's like if somebody's got, maybe they got 10, 15, 20, 30, $50,000 that they can do something with, have that in their policy. They want to be the banker in this situation. I just want to leave people with the point that there's a great opportunity for them, right? It's not something. It wasn't a unicorn that you went out and you did these deals with $1,000. It can be done on a regular basis, and I just want to leave people with that thought process, right?
100%. Yeah, like I said, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Like I have a work ethic, but I know that there's a lot of people that work harder than me. I play way too much, right? I really do. Work really hard when I'm at work, and I'm disciplined, but I have a good life. I don't just live for work. Right,
exactly. So anybody that's out there, again, Zack, your contact information, that'll be in the show notes, but it's dfdmastery.com. Is that your website?
Yep, dfdmastery.com. And then if you want to catch the 40-day challenge, there's a specialty link of 40 in 40. So /40 in 40. dfdmastery.com and /40 in 40.
All right, well, we'll get that in the show notes. Yeah, I really appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to hearing success stories from anybody that's listening to this podcast. I'd love for them to, at least consider the possibility of saying, this may be a great opportunity for me. Going out, doing the research, right? Being educated. Is Zack the person for you? He may be, he may not be, but at least open your mind to that possibility. And then when it is a good fit, you'll know it's a good fit. And then when you have people on both ends that are both trying to be of service, great things are going to happen. So again, 100%. Zack, I appreciate your time. And hopefully we can talk to you soon.
Of course. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
All right.
If you're enjoying this podcast or know anyone else that might be interested, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and please leave a review. This will help this podcast reach and help more people by ranking higher in searches and ultimately help more people get out of financial bondage. And don't be afraid to share this podcast with your friends and family, as we can be easily found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.